Okay, great. So my name is Paul Tagliaferri. I am the chair of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals. It is November 28th, 2023, and past the hour of 7 p.m. This open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29, 2023. All members of the Zoning Board of Appeals are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Zoning Board of Appeals to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Unless the chair notes otherwise, members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment or will not, Lori?
We do not have any public hearings this evening.
Okay. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Rutan.
Aye.
Brad Blanchett.
Aye.
Susie Cislica.
Aye.
Fran Backstrand.
Aye.
Jeffrey Grabowski.
Aye.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lori Connors.
Here.
Robert Federico.
Here.
So just some meeting ground rules. The chair will invite each speaker applicant on the agenda. Doing that today. Okay. So jumping right into the first item on the agenda is the continuation of the consideration of the petition for a variance submitted by Om Shri Jagadabi LLC, requirement to submit a disposal works construction permit issued by the Board of Health with a building permit. Application to allow reconstruction of the structure on the property located at 27 Belmont Street, map 109, parcel 20 in the Highway Business Zoning District and Groundwater Protection Overlay District Area 2. So Lori, this applicant has confirmed that they would like to continue this meeting to the January 23rd at 7 p.m. meeting.
Yes, that is correct. So the applicant does eventually intend to withdraw their application because they plan to submit a septic plan to the Board of Health for approval. So that would be for a brand new septic system. However, they have not done this as of this date, so they are asking for a continuance.
Bob.
Just to piggyback on what Laurie said, they have submitted some sort of a design or at least a location for it. They have pared down, excuse me, the capacity of the system to less than 10,000 gallons, which puts it back under town review from the health department as opposed to the DEP. In conjunction with that, they need to change the occupant load of the building itself. And I'm awaiting those plans as well. So what they're looking to do is replace the existing septic system using local control and altering the occupancy of the building itself so that they can get the permit in the normal course of action instead of having to apply for the variance. And I believe they're just holding these continuances just to kind of hold their place in case something goes afoul. So
Okay.
a little bit of a heads up on that.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Appreciate that.
Yep.
I guess then, is there a motion to Mark?
I move, Mr. Chair, I move that we continue the hearing for 27 Belmont Street to the our January 23rd meeting.
Okay. Thanks,
Second.
Mark.
At 7 p.m. Second.
Oh, 7 p.m. Sorry.
Second.
So Mark made a motion. Fran got the second. Roll call vote. Mark.
Aye.
Fran.
Aye.
Brad.
Aye.
Susie.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right, so next up is the discussion regarding the request from David Cooley to reopen the public hearing, a possible decision for 129 Maple Street for a special permit to reconstruct a non-conforming structure destroyed by fire, special permit for use in the groundwater protection overlay district, and site plan approval for a proposed 5-unit, 4,600 square foot multifamily structure and associated site work on the property located at 129 Maple Street, map 52, parcel 171829, in the residential C zoning district and groundwater protection overlay district area 2. So we received a letter from the applicant's lawyer dated November 8th of this year, basically requesting that we reopen the case. So just to give some context, this applicant first filed an application with the Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe it was back in March or April of this year. We heard a case starting, I believe it was in June, was the first initial form of the case. It was continued several times over the summer. We then had a meeting in October in which we received more information from the applicant and updates at that point. We, at that time, in last month, closed the public hearing and deliberated the case, but there were some open questions that we had. We have since gotten additional information to confirm the exact special permit that we are looking at. But in that time, we have also received a letter from the applicant wishing to reopen the public hearing. So the fact that this was not advertised as a public hearing, we did not, there were no, abutters were not notified, and the entire process with which a public hearing is required did not occur prior to this meeting. So basically, I will leave it up to the board to decide, or we can discuss this as a board. But the way I see it, and Lori, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is we can either not reopen the public hearing, continue with our deliberations tonight, and potentially render a decision on the case today, right? Option 2 would be that we could vote to potentially reopen the public hearing, at which point we would then need to immediately push this to the next meeting that we have on our calendar, which is January, at which point we would then need to re-notify the public, notify abutters, and all the other items that need to occur in order for a public hearing to happen, okay? So, I mean, I'll leave it up to the board for their opinion on that, but those are sort of the two options that we have tonight. We can either not open the public hearing, move forward, deliberate the case, feel like we've gotten enough information, make a decision tonight, potentially, or if we do reopen the public hearing, we cannot take public testimony because it was not notified as a public hearing. All right? Is that, Laura, does that summarize
Correct.
kind of?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Fran, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just have a question. I think you said that in addition to this letter that we received on November 8th, we received we received other information. In order for us to even know what that is, do we have to open the hearing? Like, I don't know what other information you're referring to.
I mean, it was more of town council reviewing sort of the draft decision.
Okay.
Is what I was referring to. Yes.
All right,
Yes,
thank
there
you.
was no new information. It was just reviewing of what our draft decision had. All right, so I guess if
you don't need, that doesn't typically happen during the public hearing. The town council submits, suggested improvements to the decision. So that isn't what would trigger reopening the public hearing. What's triggering this conversation is the letter that we received from the applicant's counsel. So he stated that he believes that some of the information that was brought up during the deliberation was not correct, and he wants to speak to that discussion.
Grant, I think you still have your hand up.
No, yeah, I put it back up. All right, so that answer, I just want to make sure that we didn't get new information after the public hearing, but the town council reviewing the draft makes sense to me. I guess I feel like we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, right? If we just did the training last night, and if we knew what the reasons were, and I guess I don't know how specific the letter would have had to be to say, here's what we think was wrong, and that's why it's prudent for us to reopen it, right? If it's a serious misrepresentation of something, we would have a responsibility to correct it before we decided yay or nay. But not knowing what the information is, I don't know whether it's hard to know whether it would change the conversation, but I don't know. It's risky either way, I guess.
The attorney is here and he does want to explain in a little bit more detail his letter without going into the case. But that's up to you folks whether you want to hear him expand on his letter or not.
Right. So I think, Lori, I think the thing is right. So like, if there was a set of facts that were wrong, he cannot correct it now, right? Because
Correct.
that would be considered new public information and would require. So like, essentially that, right? He would basically have to recite his letter or something, some version of that saying he wants a request because he thinks we got something wrong. What that A, B, and C are would have to, if we decide to move it to a new public hearing, would have to occur then.
Correct. So he could say, well, I think so-and-so made a statement about this and I don't agree with it. So I would like to reopen the public hearing so that I can explain my rationale for why I think this statement was incorrect. So he could identify the statement that was incorrect in his opinion, but not correct it until the public hearing is open, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for us, really, it's, do we want to reopen the public hearing, or do we think we have all the information to be able to make a decision tonight? Susie?
So if we reopen the public hearing, we could reopen to everything, like more information and more facts and more. And I kind of know the answer to this, but I know that I saw that we have a lot of people watching right now. So I'm kind of asking for the public as well, that we open it up to all new facts, all new everything can be brought in again.
That's correct. So if you reopen the public hearing, then you're reopening the public hearing for everybody. So anybody who wants to comment further would be able to provide that testimony. If they want to submit written comments, they'd be able to provide that. So if you do reopen the public hearing and the attorney says X, then anybody from the public would be able to respond to whatever he says, as does the ZBA, of course.
Thank you.
Brad?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I don't think it's necessary to reopen the hearing, only because the applicant has had ample time to present his case to the board on what they want to do on that specific piece of property. I just think that they didn't like the conversation, the deliberation that we had after the hearing was closed. I don't think they can bring any new information in front of us to change the opinion of the board or to just change the complete application of what they're presenting in front of the board, if that makes sense. I just think that they just want to change the narrative. They want an opinion and they want to present their rebuttal to what we discussed after the hearing was closed. I don't think there's any new information to be presented. Everything was presented to us. They had ample time to do that. And so what's said was said. And That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. Fran?
All right, so I'm just going to disagree on one point with Brad in that we don't know what the information is that they believe we deliberated on that was incorrect. So if it's not reopening the hearing, I would like to hear from the attorney what he believes is incorrect, and maybe we have within enough information to say, oh, you meant 5 units, but we said 6, but of course we know it's 5, right? I mean, I don't know the weight of his concern, and unless I know what the weight is, because they're not, it's not that there wasn't enough time to give all the information. What they're saying is we deliberated on information that they believe is factually incorrect, and our decision is based on that information. So I'd like to know what part. Is it a big thing or a little thing? And if we can hear that without opening the hearing back up, then we can determine whether it has enough merit to reopen the hearing.
Okay. Thanks, Fran. Mark?
Mr. Chair, in my belief, I don't think we can open up or we can't hear from the attorney from now without opening up the hearing. If we're going to let somebody talk, we have to let everybody have their ideas out. That being said, we had this applicant go through considerable expense. He modified his proposal, and if there's something else he wants to say, we do control the hearing. We can, if it's going off on a tangent, we can cut it short and say, thank you very much. So I don't see that much of a problem in reopening the hearing and hearing what they have to say in an open forum, with people rebutting if they have to, with the public rebutting if they want to, or in support of it. I feel like we should hear what they have to say.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Susie?
That really isn't how we work, though, allowing people to reopen hearings after they hear us talk. I think it's setting a dangerous precedent, because as soon as we start deliberating on anything, anybody could want to file for this. So I think it would set a really dangerous precedent, just because we're a board of appeals. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Thanks, Susie. So I think for me, my opinion is, I feel like this case is, to what I said earlier, has been going on for several months. This applicant has been given ample opportunity. I think for me personally, my decision is based off the information that the applicant provided in his most recent meeting, and my decision is based off the facts and the numbers that were presented at that point. Just in terms of the size and the scope of the project, the style of the house, I don't really think that there's going to be much that's going to change from what the applicant could potentially say. He can say that we maybe got something wrong, but it's based off the information that he provided. This isn't information based off of what we provided. So that's kind of what I would say. And plus, I think also, this has been going on for several months. I mean, I feel like owe the applicant a decision. To have to punt this to a different meeting would, require an additional cost to the town to reopen the public hearing and everything else. And so I don't think there's going to be much to change. But so I don't think we need to necessarily take a vote on this, but if we want to go around one more time to say whether or not you agree we should reopen this hearing, and we can do that, and then we can move to start deliberating on this case. Brad?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I don't find any reason whatsoever to reopen this hearing. I think, like you said, the applicant had ample time to present their findings, their presentation. And I think we can make a decision tonight.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Susie, I'll go to you next.
I agree. I don't think we should reopen it. Just as I said, the precedent that it was. I'm even thinking like the bigger commercial cases and everything else. That sometimes we have a lot of information in the deliberations, like the meetings that take, and then we want to wait until the next month before we decide, and we have to sit on some information. I think it's people would be filing to reopen left and right. I think it's a bad precedent. I don't think we should reopen.
Okay, thanks. Fran?
Well, first, I do think we already set that precedent, because I think we did reopen the hearing once recently, and I can't remember the reasons for it, but we did have to reopen it for some reason. I'm not afraid to hear what he has to say. I think that I would rather make my decision based on accurate information than potentially incorrect information. But I do, also feel that we owe this applicant a decision. I will say that at the training yesterday, they said one way to avoid this in the future is to leave the public hearing open through deliberation. Therefore, if there is a question and additional information is warranted, you can get it without an issue. But I mean, I would love to know what we got wrong, but we probably will learn it on an appeal if the application fails. But
Okay. So Fran, I think the last one that we reopened was 329 West Main Street, where we closed this case, started deliberating, realized that we needed more information, and then reopened it in the same night. So
was it the same night, or was it the next meeting?
So we reopened it in the same
night. Same night.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was the same night.
Right.
In Fran, it was me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the conservation piece.
Oh, right.
Right.
78 West Main. Yeah.
Right.
Mark?
Right. So again, I mean, it's one of those, I'm not, again.
Okay. Thanks, Fran. Mark?
No, I have nothing further.
Okay. All right. So I guess then, so we can just dive into the deliberation of the case. So Lori had sent around a draft decision from town council. And so I think, just to kind of reconfirm my points on this, so just to sort of go back and sort of recap this case and this decision. So at the time of the fire for this particular piece of property, right, there was a non-conforming use and a non-conforming structure that existed at that point. Obviously, the non-conforming structure was the fact that it was a multifamily on a small lot. And obviously, the non-conforming use is the fact that it's a multifamily. And so multifamily uses are not allowed in any residential zones A, B, or C, right? But it existed previously, for many years as a multifamily, a 5-unit multifamily. And so it falls within the sort of pre-existing non-conforming bucket. And so when we look at this case, right, the special permit criteria that we are looking at, right, is laid out in section 708 020 for the special permit required for both an extension and an alteration of a pre-existing non-conforming use and structure, right? So the fire happens, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use and structure, right? The applicant has the right, and Northborough has the protections in its bylaws that said, if there is a fire, you can rebuild and use this pre-existing non-conforming structure so long as you don't expand the size of the footprint and the size of the volume, right? And so this is something that's laid out in the zoning bylaws. The applicant does not need to come in front of the ZBA to get approval to sort of rebuild what exists there today, and can do so by just going to Bob and filing a building permit, right? The applicant has chosen to expand both the use and the structure, and that is why we are presented with this case. And so the criteria that we are using to look over this, right, is laid out in section 708020 A and B for both the extension and alteration of a non-conforming use in accordance with this section, right? In making such determination, the Zoning Board of Appeals shall consider whether the proposed use is different in character, or it's an effect on the neighborhood or in the property in the vicinity, right? And then for the structure, it's that any reconstruction, extension, alteration, or change shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure to the neighborhood. In making such determination, the Zoning Board of Appeals shall consider whether the proposed use is different in character, or its effect on the neighborhood or the property in the vicinity. And so I think that for me, what I'm using to sort of make this decision is based on everything that was presented during the public hearing, right? And that is the size and the scope and the style and the character of the pre-existing structure versus the new existing structure, right? You had a 1850 style farmhouse of, roughly 3,900 square feet, and the new structure is 2 to 3 times the size. The units go from anywhere from approximately 780 square feet as what the applicant presented to over almost 1,600 square feet in size, right? And so that change, in my estimation, is why I think I'm not in favor of this, right? And so, I think it also sets a bad precedent as well, right? So for any sort of pre-existing non-conforming use or structure, right, for a change to be this dramatic, I think sets a bad sort of example for, other projects in town. But, I think just to kind of go through some of the points in the decision, right? So the proposed building is nearly double the size of the previous multifamily structure. The original structure had a finished area of 3,900 square feet. The proposed reconstruction would have a finished area of about 7,400 square feet, an unfinished area of about 6,400 square feet, resulting in total volume of 13,900 square feet, right? Right. You talk about the neighborhood. The neighborhood is single and 2-family homes with finished areas ranging from 1,000 to 2,500 square feet. And so, we kind of just go through that. I mean, I can go through the next one too as well. Just in terms of the site plan as well. Obviously, the proposed development does not achieve greater consistency and compatibility with the surrounding area. So as to the building design, scale, or site design, right? And so those are some of the facts that are going to be in our decision, and some of the things that, at least for me, that's sort of the perspective I'm coming from. But I'm happy to hear from anyone else on the board. Brad?
Yeah, no, Mr. Chair, I mean, you made great points. You made a lot of factual points. So agreed. I don't think there's any reason, again, to what you just said, and no reason to reopen the hearing.
Okay, Fran?
Okay, so I mean, I think that the one thing that I would disagree with is there's no expansion of use. It is still a 5-unit rental property, which it was. The size of the building is bigger, the units themselves are bigger, but they are still 1-bedroom, 5 units on a site that is now larger because of the consolidated lots. I don't see how a larger structure is detrimental to the neighborhood. It's not a 5-story apartment building that's going to overshadow and cause people to have, no access to the sunlight. It's just a different style of rental property that is more current and modern and more desirable. So, I mean, I can tell you, I can say all the reasons why I think it does meet the criteria, and conditions would make it palatable. But if the will of the board is to deny it based on the fact that it is bigger than it was, I just don't see that as detrimental. There's no, some of the questions or concerns of the neighbors about what about parties and what about how many cars? Well, if you put 2 5,000 square foot single family homes on those lots, I mean, we had 4 cars in our driveway when I had teenagers. I mean, I don't see how it's more detrimental. It's a need in the community. It's a need in the Commonwealth. It's a need in the country to have more densely populated structures. So, I mean, I don't see any reason to deny it, but I think I'm in the minority.
So I guess, Fran, the one thing I would say, just in terms of like, you know, like the housing affordability and stuff like that. I mean, I think, and look, we as a board, right, we have approved as recently as a few months ago a multifamily in town, right? The property next to Dunkin' Donuts, right? They were requiring a special permit in that neighborhood, right? They couldn't have gotten a multifamily. So it's not like we are against multifamily in town. I think that there are parts of town where it's allowed and where it's not allowed, right? And where it's reasonable and where it's not reasonable, right? And the zoning bylaws are very clear in terms of multifamily being completely prohibited within the residential zone. Now, again, the applicant can still rebuild in the same size, right? And if we're talking about housing affordability, if he builds in the same size with the same footprint, those are affordable 1-bedroom units, in my estimation. So I think like I appreciate your point, but
right. I'm not disagreeing with any of what you just said. All I'm saying is the size of this 5-unit townhouse structure does not, to me, warrant a denial just because the size of it is bigger than what was pre-existing non-conforming. That's all.
Okay, thanks. Susie.
I think you said it in the, but I was what I was gonna comment on was that it's a townhome structure. It does resemble a townhome structure with the individual entrances along and how it's set up. It's not resembling an apartment home like it used to. So the definition in my head of the building, along with the plans from how it was before to how it is now, and along with everything Paul said about the size and the use and everything. So I agree with everything Paul said, but I think, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Fran, and that it is a need in the Commonwealth and across. And I've said before, like I would love to move everything and have more apartments and everything. This is not the area of town where it's supposed to be, and I'm just agreeing with everything Paul said, but thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Brad, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. And at no point did the applicant say that these are affordable. Okay, let's make this abundantly clear. At no point in the application, during the presentation, that these are affordable. Okay, in the old days, your rent, oh, it's a lot cheaper than having a mortgage. That's gone. That's gone by the wayside. Okay, so we can throw that right out the window right now. All right, and the fact of the matter is that this area of town does not allow for multifamily homes. Okay, these are what, 5 units for I don't know how many square feet, and it's almost the same size as the homes around them. Okay, there's no brownstones in this neighborhood. There are no brownstones in the town. Okay, so let's get that out of our heads that this is not affordable. Okay, can we? All right, so let's get rid of that. The fact of the matter is The town does not want this. The neighborhood does not want this. You can look at the results of the elections. You can look at the results of the master plan as well. Okay. This does not make sense. It does not fit the unit. If the applicant wanted to just build on the exact footprint, they could do that. What they're asking for is 2-3x of what's there right now. Okay. That's what we're dealing with right now. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Red. Mark, do you have
just to say that this building has been sitting there for several years as a derelict building. Your points have been that the building can be reconstructed as it was, as a 5-unit with the same capacity. My questions remains, why hasn't it? And I believe the why it hasn't is that it's not economical to rebuild it as it was, and that what he is providing is the only existing solution we have to either a derelict building, which right now is a hazard to the neighborhood, is a detriment to the neighborhood. We can propose pie in the sky solutions, but they haven't shown up. No one's put down their money to rebuild that house as it was. You know, I kind of draw parallels with the White Cliffs, where there's all sorts of proposals to make it something wonderful. However, that hasn't happened. It's still sitting, it's also sitting there as a derelict building. And I anticipate that in turning this down, the 129 Maple Street will continue as a derelict building. And so, and I don't think that's a plus for the neighborhood. I think that Mr. Cooley's proposal is reasonable and is a reflection of what can be built with today's economics and what will be occupied by 5 people in their 5 one-bedroom units once he completes it. That's how I feel.
okay? Thanks, Mark. I mean, I guess the only thing I would say to that is, you know, there was no other plan that we received from the applicant. I mean, who knows what, if nothing is possible. I mean, the lot is obviously a conforming lot. They can build a single family house, but yeah, Fran, you have your hand up?
I just have a question for either Lori or Bob. When it comes to, because unless an extension is granted, the applicant only has 2 years from the catastrophe to do something. I think we're coming up, wasn't that in 21? And if this is not going to go forward, do we have any responsibility, or should we look at, I mean, do we give an extension now? Do we wait to see what he does? Because there are ramifications for if he demolishes it and then doesn't improve it. There's a timeline. There's also a timeline for him to demolish it, I think. But I think that's a Bob or Lori question.
I defer to our zoning enforcement officer. Bob, are you still on?
No, I don't see him.
And I'm just now reading in the zoning, it says within 2 years of the catastrophe or the demolition, unless we grant an extension. Okay, so maybe the clock won't start ticking until it actually is demolished.
I'm gonna get off for a minute and call him and ask him to join. One moment. Okay, hold on. Okay, Bob just called me. He said that he got put in the audience. So if you could just bring him back in, he would be happy to answer the question.
Hey, Bob, can you hear us?
You're muted, Bob.
I can hear you. Oh, good grief. My image is back. Okay. To answer your question, the pre-existing, chapter 8 language talks about a 2-year from the time of catastrophe. I would submit that since he tried to do something other than repair and rebuild without special permits, since he attempted for the special permit, I would suggest that that time has told, and he probably is still within his 2-year right to exercise that right to rebuild in place. But that's up to the discretion of the board, I would think. But I would think it would be reasonable that he had the opportunity to rebuild in place, but he decided to attempt to do something different with the property, and and whether or not that is going to be approved, I don't know. But if he's, I would think it will be right and reasonable to toll that time. And probably keep him within some sort of a 2-year schedule.
Okay, thanks, Bob. I guess nothing what we're deciding on tonight has anything to do with that, though, right? Like,
no,
that's
he has the right to, number one, repair it in place with just a simple set of building permits. In terms of rebuilding it in the same, to tear it down and rebuild it, same volume, same style, same layout, same footprint. That would be, I would consider that to be reasonable.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Sorry for putting you in the audience.
No problem.
Brad, probably appreciate it putting you in the audience.
Yeah. Nice job throwing Bob out there in the audience. Anyhow, so Mr. Chair, I don't know how to move forward with this, but like Bob said, I don't know when that grandfather, that the 2-year window ends, but I am more than happy to allow the applicant to continue the fact that if the applicant wants to put the same type of building on the same footprint, right, like our bylaws allow, and I think the 2-year window has expired, but what we're looking at right now, I would like to close the hearing, or we don't even, the hearing's not even open, but I would like to just move forward with just close the discussion and move forward with what we're discussing right now.
Yeah, so I think for tonight, and we can definitely, if everyone's had a chance to speak, sort of move forward with our votes. But I think for this, the question of, whether you can continue the use or whatever, I think that is for Bob and potentially us as a board at a different time, at a different date. What's in front of us right now is the project that was presented, starting from earlier this year up until last month, right? And sort of the decision and the criteria that we're looking at there. So I think in terms of like the mechanics of this, we can start with the waivers that the applicant was asking for with relief from the locust plan, the development impact statement. Then we can move to the groundwater protection overlay district, which, I don't think we've touched on that yet, but, potentially, the groundwater protection overlay district, to make sure that is in approval. So like, similar to, a previous decision that we had earlier this year, right? Like, the applicant did meet sort of the criteria that it is laid out in sort of the groundwater, right? So from my perspective, I will vote to approve the groundwater plans that were presented for this case, right? But for me, the special permit and then the site plan special permit is where I sort of disagree on that front. So if everyone's had a chance to talk, and we can go around one more time to provide any other input or any new information that the board wants, not new information, but any new opinions that the board wants to provide, we can do that. And then we can start with the motions for the waivers and then the groundwater and then go forward. So I just one last, if anyone has any other information they would like to say, Mark or Fran or Susie or Brad or Jeff too. I mean, feel free to weigh in with anything as well. Okay, so I don't see any other hands up right now.
No, sir.
So does anyone want to make a motion to waive the planning board rules and regs, starting with the email that we got from Lori at 4:11 p.m. Anyway.
Hey, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Fran. Hi,
Okay,
Fran.
I move
Can we hear
that
you?
we waive the planning board rules and regulation. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep. Am I the only one that can't hear Fran?
I can hear. She suddenly went dark, but I can hear her.
And start looking.
I can't hear her. She's like
Sorry,
listening for me.
Yeah, am I the only one that can't hear Fran?
Maybe she's frozen now.
No, my internet's been wacky today too.
Fran seems to have frozen as well as
Yeah.
gone silent.
Yeah.
So we can wait for, oh, Fran, here we go. Fran, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Well, for some reason, when I open up another window and try to read an email, I go
Yeah.
gray, and so I'm not going to read my email. So I'm going to pass on making any motions.
Okay.
Sorry.
Brad or Susie or Mark, does someone want to make a motion to waive the planning board rules and regulations, section 7.2C4 relative to the locust plan?
I move that we waive the planning board rules as stated.
Okay. So Mark made a motion. Brad, do you want a second? Oh, Susie seconded. So motion was made to waive the planning board rules and regulations, section 7.2C4 relative to the locust plan. This will be a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Susie?
Hi.
Brad?
Aye.
Fran?
Oh,
Aye.
And I
Aye.
am an aye as well. I'm an aye. So the motion to waive the planning board rules and regs, section 7.2D1 relative to the developmental impact statement. Mark, Mark, did you want to make a motion for that one?
Yeah, I make a motion to waive the planning board rules and regulations in section 720-1 relative to the development impact statement.
Second,
Fran seconded. Mark made a motion. Fran seconded. Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Fran,
aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Susie.
But is it 720 one, or is it 7-2D?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 2D.
Seven
Okay.
2D1. Yeah.
I just want to make sure we don't have to go back.
Yep. Susie, you're an aye.
I'm an I, yes.
All right, and I'm an aye as well. So the next one is a motion to grant a special permit for a non-conforming multifamily use in the groundwater protection overlay. In addition, in accordance with zoning bylaw section 7-07010D3B 1 and 2, findings of fact 1 to 10 and conditions of approval. Got a bug in here. A2 through K. So this is the groundwater protection overlay special permit.
Mr. Chair,
Mark. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to grant a special permit for a non-conforming multifamily use in a groundwater protection overlay district in accordance with zoning bylaw section 7-07-010D3B 1 and 2, with finding of facts 1 through 10 and conditions of approval A through K.
Second,
Okay, Mark made a motion and Fran seconded. Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Fran,
aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Susie. On mute. One more time. Susie.
I,
All right, and I have an aye as well. All right, and the last one is the motion to grant a special permit with site plan approval to reconstruct a non-conforming pre-existing multifamily structure destroyed by fire at 129 Maple Street. This is in accordance with zoning bylaw section 7-08-020 A and B, section 7-08-060 A3, and section 7-03-050 A2 in accordance with facts of findings 1 to 3. So Lori, just to confirm, this is done through we're approving this in the affirmative, or making the motion in the affirmative?
So the motion would be made in the affirmative. I just want to clarify as findings of fact 1 through 13.
Okay.
And then there would be a change to the decision in the draft decision. I anticipated that you folks would vote no on the waivers. You voted unanimously in favor of the waivers. So I will be removing bullet 3 and 4 from finding C.
Okay.
Just so you're aware.
Okay.
All right, we ready?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like a motion to grant a special permit with site plan approval to reconstruct a non-conforming pre-existing multifamily structure destroyed by fire at 129 Maple Street in accordance with zoning bylaw section 7-08-020 A and B, section 7-08-060 A3, and section 7-03-050 A2 in accordance with the findings of fact 1 through 13. And I guess that's it.
Second,
So Mark made a motion and Fran seconded. Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Fran,
aye.
Brad,
Nay.
Susie,
nay.
and I'm a nay as well. All right. So Laura, you confirm that there are no other open applications at this particular time?
Nope, as far as carryover applications, we have none. We did receive a new application and they understand that's an appeal of a building inspector decision. And that, they know that they're programmed on the January agenda. So, but if you decide that you want to cancel the December 26th meeting, if you could formally do that, that'd be great in a vote.
Mr. Chair?
Okay. Mark, do you want to discuss or?
We cancel the December 26th meeting and
Second.
continue to January 23rd.
Second.
Sorry, so before we take this vote, is there any other further discussion? Just kidding. So roll call vote, Mark,
Aye.
Fran,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Let's see. Oh, minutes. So we received minutes for the September 5th meeting, which was the joint planning board and zoning board of appeals meeting to sort of discuss the like the fee changes and stuff from, geez, it's like 3 months ago now at this point. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Fran, I believe you were absent at this meeting. Does anyone have any feedback or want to make a motion to approve the minutes from September 5th? Mark?
I have no feedback and I'm ready to approve unless someone wants to speak up. Hearing none, I motion that we approve both the September 5th and the September 26th minutes and accept them.
Second.
Okay, Mark made a
Chair?
motion.
Oh, can we do them separately? Because I would abstain from one and not
Okay.
the other.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. Let's we can take the September 5th ones. Okay. So Mark made a motion to approve the September 5th meetings. I believe Brad seconded them. Jeff, you will be able to vote since you were there at the meeting. This will be a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Susie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right, so the next one is the September 26th minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we
Yep.
approve and accept the September 26th minutes.
Second.
Sorry, Brad, Fran beat you. Mark made a motion, Fran seconded. Roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Fran?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Susie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. I think we still, well, I think that's everything on our agenda. I did want to ask, Fran, are you still participating in the master plan implementation committee?
Yes, I'm back on it as the Council on Aging representative.
Oh, okay. Does the zoning board of appeals have a rep then that attends those meetings technically?
No, we were not one of the boards that were assigned to it.
Okay. Are there any updates that you think would be meaningful to this board for that, or? And sorry to
at
put
this
you on the
point,
spot. I probably should.
That's right. At our last meeting, we're wrapping up the revitalization of the downtown. We're at the final stages. Actually, the consultant should be presenting to the full board of selectmen, and we may get invitations to that. Lori would probably remember better. I think they were going to invite the land board land use boards to that meeting. And it's just be a presentation by the consultants of the final document of the revitalization of downtown. And then we'll move on to something else. But we'll hand it off to the select board to, make decisions on prioritizing some of the recommendations. And the planning board to create possible zoning changes, zoning amendments for changes to accommodate some of those priorities.
Okay, thanks, Fran. Lori?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you folks know that the building committee for the new fire station has invited the design review committee and the MPIC to attend their next meeting of the building committee to kind of discuss. One of the things that they've been hearing is, of course, that it should be New England architecture, and the building committee and the architect aren't clear on what that means. So they're asking for clarification. They don't have building designs as of yet. They're very much in the conceptual process, but that process is coming. I have advised them to meet early with the design review committee. Of course, you folks are the ultimate permitting authority for the fire station. So you will, of course, be very much involved with this project going forward. But I just wanted to give you the update that that process is starting and is in the very, very early stages.
Okay, thanks, Lori. So I guess the other thing, and I wanted to ask about was planning board zoning amendments for 2024 annual town meeting. I mean, so I know historically, the ZBA has met with the planning board. Personally, I would like to continue to do so to provide input and feedback and such. I guess what I would like to know from other members of the board is, at what point do you think is most appropriate when things have been sort of flushed out, or, early in the stages in terms of how, actually, I don't even know where they are in terms of their zoning bylaws for next year, but I assume it's still initial discussions at this point.
Yeah, so we've been talking the last couple of meetings. I presented the MBTA bylaw, a couple of different options at the November meeting of the planning board. And so they've seen that. They've also seen a couple of draft articles on some other matters, but I don't think we're ready for you yet. We're still cobbling things out. Still drafting new articles. We do actually have a couple of public hearings scheduled for December 5th meeting. So I'm not sure how much time will be devoted to discussion of zoning bylaws, if any, on December 5th. So that would push the bylaw discussion to December 19th. So I'm thinking maybe February, late January, early February might be a good time, because then at least we should know all of the articles that we're going to present.
Okay, and usually they try to target, what is it, like March for when they have like the public input meetings and stuff? So sometime
Yes.
obviously before public input meetings, but after they have a framework of like some of the amendments and stuff. Does that sound about right for everyone?
Yeah.
Do other members of the board still want to be involved in sort of like, I feel like personally, I think, this board has a lot of experience in terms of the zoning bylaws and stuff, and it is useful for, people to provide that feedback, whether they take it or they don't or whatever. But I do think it is helpful for for the zoning board and the planning board to sort of try to, have that sort of back and forth. I think it's helpful. That's just my personal opinion on it, but I don't want to be too early or too late in the process. So, I guess if they're still sort of discussing some of the bylaw changes and stuff, then, we can do that maybe, towards the end of January or early February, like you said. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah. No, no, totally.
Okay. I don't really have anything else for tonight. Lori or Bob, do you guys have anything else?
No, I'm all
Okay.
set. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chair, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, Fran made a motion to adjourn. Mark seconded. Roll call vote. Fran,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good one.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody. Take care.
Happy holidays.